Welcome to Face to Face. Our guest today is Tanvi Rana, founder and CEO of Mints2 Events. We are coming up with our wedding expo on April 28 at Burlington Marriott, and we thought we'll give our readers and viewers an overview of what is happening in the Indian and South Asian wedding market here. And we thought Tanvi was the perfect person to talk about it because this is what she does for her living. Tanvi, welcome to our studio.
Thank you so much.
And I was looking forward to talking to you about what is happening in the wedding landscape in the New England area.
Yeah.
So before we come to Mints2 Events, just give us a quick snapshot that what is really happening in the Indian and South Asian wedding market.
Sure. So weddings are evolving quite a bit from what we're traditionally used to from, let's say, 10 plus years ago, where a lot of the parents were involved with the planning and a lot of family members were involved with the planning. Now the bride and groom are the primary planners, and they're the ones dictating what they want their wedding to be like. You know, there's a lot of resources available online. The bride basically knows what she wants her wedding to look like before they even pick a venue or they pick any of their vendors or even send out invitations. They know exactly what they want. So, as a wedding planner, it's our responsibility to help make that vision come into a reality. Now, when we're talking about decor and customs, some of it is getting lost, in my opinion. There's a lot of fusion weddings these days. Majority of the weddings we're doing, they're fusion weddings.
So now I want to stop you here for a second.
Yeah.
So this is the one topic I'm really interested because, when we write articles and talk to people, we always come across that there is a complete shift in terms of the fusion weddings and also intercultural weddings. So now I think you have more intercultural weddings, Indian versus non-Indian.
Yes.
And also in India too, right? The South Indian, North Indian, West Indian, East Asian. So the wedding landscape has completely changed. Now, what percentage, if you give us some numbers, for example, what percentage of weddings are intercultural weddings?
I would say almost 90% of the weddings that we've done or the weddings that we do and upcoming this year are mixed weddings.
90%?
Yes.
I remember a few years ago we did a story with Sobha Sastry of Alankar, and she said at that time that 80% of the weddings are, the intercultural.
Yes.
And our readers went crazy. We got so many calls and emails from people that is it really true?
Yeah.
Now you are saying 90%.
It's true. I mean, they can look at the social media, look at our websites. We're a sister company of Boston Sound and Light, which my husband, Yogi Rana, is the owner of, and all of the weddings that he does. You can see very easily that majority of the weddings are a fusion or a mixed. So two different religions, even from the same country of India, or even one of the bride or groom being Indian and then the other being non-Indian.
Sure. So now, what challenges it brings to wedding planners like you, that how the wedding is a big thing and you have these two different cultures from food, from look and feel and customs. So how do you bring it together in your planning?
Yeah, so a lot of the planning is planning. When it comes to selecting vendors, venue, photo, video, all of that can be done by anyone, I guess you can say. You can look up a photographer, you can look up who you want your florist to be. But what's really the challenge is managing the emotions of the families. So the bride and groom and what their requirements are, and then both sets of parents and what their requirements are. Sometimes they're on the same wavelength. Many times there's a lot of conflicting requirements. And so managing those emotions and try to make all parties happy who are involved in planning the wedding is, I would say, one of the biggest challenges. And myself being a bride several years ago, I can recall getting married and having to leave my family, join another family. There's a lot of expectations from the bride and the groom. So being able to balance those those are all some of the more challenging aspects of wedding planning, not just finding a vendor or finding.
So now, from your planning perspective, I just want to go item by item now.
Sure.
So let's first talk about the food. That's a big issue in the intercultural marriages. How you deal with that food issue?
So it's good that you bring that up. We're actually doing many weddings where they have two cuisines. So they have a full Indian menu, but they also have a full non-Indian menu. So we're doing a wedding in June where the groom is from the south, so we have a full barbecue lunch. But along with the barbecue lunch, we have the South Indian bride. So we have a full South Indian lunch menu. So, that impacts budget. It also impacts the requirements of what hotels will allow. There's a lot of intricacies in making sure that two different cuisines can be served at the same time.
Sure. Now also, what about the restaurants? Is it the same restaurant or do you have to go to different restaurants?
No, so the Indian food will be catered from an Indian restaurant locally. And then the barbecue food or the non-Indian food will be catered through the hotel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, that's the one thing.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about religion and the priests, the
Yes.
religious ceremonies.
Yes.
What challenge is
So
there?
we fusion everything up these days.
Okay.
So I would say predominantly the Indian, whether it's Hindu, South Indian, Muslim, that piece of it is typically more dominating, and will incorporate the Indian ceremony with some elements of a Western ceremony. So exchanging of vows is a piece that we do quite often towards the end of the ceremony. When we're doing exchange of rings and the sindoor, we'll do vow exchanges. Sometimes we have Jewish and Indian, and so in one of the upcoming weddings, we actually have a rabbi as well as a Hindu priest. So there'll be two priests on site.
At the same time, or?
Yes, at the same time. We'll balance out who goes first, or maybe we figure out a way that they can simultaneously conduct the ceremony.
Okay.
But so it depends on how important the religion is to both families. And in this case, the Jewish religion is just as important as the Hindu, and so we'll have two priests.
Okay. Now, next challenge, at least I think could be challenging, is dealing with the music, because music is a very important part of any wedding and dancing and celebration. And of course, you have a guest from these two different cultures and the communities.
Yeah.
How you manage that and how you plan that?
Music brings people together.
Sure.
People from all different parts of the world listen to English music, and we here listen to all sorts of international music. So, when there's a 2-day event, sometimes we have an easier time balancing out some of the more Indian music the first night, and maybe the second night for the dinner reception, it's more heavy on the Western music. But that's something where if you have an expert DJ, they're able to balance out both, so both parties are happy. And so it's not just playing Indian music for the entire dance segment, it's mixing that with what the other family requires as well. So we want everyone on the dance floor.
Sure,
so it's important to mix it up and have a good balance.
Okay. Now, say it's an intercultural marriage and the wedding is done, 3-4 days have passed. Have you ever done a survey of both parties and tried to see what their reaction was in the end of the intercultural marriages?
Yeah, I mean, we are actually, when we work with our clients, we're kind of a sister to them when it comes to the bride, because there's a lot of internal family dynamics and financial spending that they may not be comfortable discussing with friends or cousins. So we end up being very close with the bride and families because of all of these details. So they're one of our siblings, they're one of our friends after the fact, and so we're keeping in touch with them, or they're messaging us saying, hey, everything went so well. We'll ask them for a review so that future clients can also reference back to their wedding.
Okay, so I'm going to reframe my question again here. So I just want to get some sort of a sense of that, once the wedding is done, and in the beginning, of course, there's a lot of nervousness, mixing culture and all those things. What is the reaction of the families, not the brides, and the groom, but the families, what they think that, oh, was it spectacular, or it is a totally different, they had never imagined?
Yeah, I mean, we hear feedback during the event and the night of the event. And then many times we do speak with the parents or whoever our main point of contact is afterwards. And all of the weddings that we do, I'm confident to say they're amazing. And I tell my clients, my future clients, that they can talk to any of our past bride and grooms or families, parents, mothers, fathers who've been involved, and they'll give you very good feedback on how we help them, how we made their wedding unique. It's not just about planning the basic wedding. We want to make sure the wedding is unique. So what can we do in that 1, 2, 3 day event to make sure that the guests walk away saying this was the best darn party that they ever went to?
So now also, before I forget, the decoration is also important aspect, especially in intercultural marriages. So is there some sort of a decor, you try to mix both, or you just go with Indian, or how?
Yeah, no, decor is a big evolving segment of the planning, I would say. We definitely want, the clients want some type of Indian touch to the decor. But I would say it's becoming a little bit more quote unquote Americanized, where it's not the traditional structure mandaps, it's not so much of the deities or statues that are in the ceremony hall. It's more fusioned up, so there's a lot more florals. I would say floral is a very important factor these days, and it's something that's being focused on a lot more than just the structure of what we say a typical mandap is. Clients are spending a good amount on florals in making that a unique piece of their wedding.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Now, if what is the typical size of say what is the number, like 300, 400?
I would say
on average.
Between 200 to 300.
200 to 300
average.
Is the ideal. Okay.
Yeah, for the fusion wedding.
For the fusion wedding. What about if just like
Indian?
Yes, Indian.
I would say closer to 400 to 500.
Closer to 400 to 500.
Yes.
Now, I remember 15, 20 years ago when I came here, getting started here in Boston. At that time, it was very rare to hear about intercultural marriages because most of the marriages were still, the Indian or South Asian marriages. Now that is becoming rarer and rarer, right? You were more surprised to find the Indian American.
Yes, when we have an Indian client or a South Asian client, it's less common to have that.
It's less common to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this one I'm not going to hold it to you, but I just need an answer because I'm sure our viewers and readers are going to ask this.
Okay.
So, for example, if you say a 300 people wedding, and you are doing in a 3 to 4 star hotel in Boston area, in suburbs or in downtown Boston, and if you put everything together, like the wedding planning, the food, the DJ, the hotel, decor, everything, priest. So what is roughly typical cost? You give me a range, for example.
Sure. I would say if it's around 300 guests,
300 guests.
If it's in the suburbs, probably close to 100,000.
Okay, which is not bad.
That includes the full day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, decor, photo, video, hair, makeup, mehndi, the venue.
Sure.
All of that.
Sure. And if it is in downtown Boston?
If it's in Boston, it will be slightly more expensive due to being in the city. Probably closer to 150.
Okay. Right.
And I'm saying average cost.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not going to.
150, 200 for a Boston wedding.
For a Boston wedding. Now, what is the more demand you see? That's it is a suburban or Boston, or it depends on the.
It depends on the client. We do quite a few weddings in Boston itself, in the proper city, but we do many in the suburbs as well.
Sure.
We actually do destination weddings as well. So in Mexico and Caribbean. We just did a wedding in Los Angeles, and we're lucky to be planning with a family who wants to do a wedding in either Spain or Italy. So right now we're scouting out venues in those countries.
Okay. Now, in India, when we grew up, the wedding always took place at home, the girl's home, basically. Now, does that type of thing happen still here or no? Like somebody said, look, I would
say maybe 50% of the time.
50% of the time, which is
it happens where the bride. Yeah, that's still happening.
At the home.
No, no, not at the home, in the location.
Oh no,
in the
I'm
city.
talking about the home. Like,
Oh, no.
No, those days are.
No, maybe some small events happen at the home.
Okay.
But the main events of the wedding and dinner reception, sangeet, garba, those are all happening in a hall or a venue.
Okay. Okay. So excellent. Now let's come back to you and the Mintu events.
Yes.
How did you get interested in wedding?
So wedding planning wasn't necessarily a dream of mine growing up. I have an electrical engineering degree from Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, and I actually have an MBA as well from Northeastern University.
And you were also born and grew up here in
Yes, I was
in
born
the
here.
U.S.
Yes.
Okay.
I find working with people very intriguing. I have a connection with others, and one thing that when I got married, so like I said, my husband is Yogi Rana from
Sure.
Boston Sound and Light. So
We have been working with him for a very, very long time.
he dominates this area and market, and he has a lot of clients that needed help.
Sure.
So I was helping his clients. I was also helping Shobha Shastri's clients from Alankar.
Alankar, sure.
And back in about 2011, we launched Pink Lotus Events with another partner. We did that for multiple years. We had different visions on the future of the company, so we decided to go our own ways. And about 5 years ago, we launched our own company, my husband and I, Mint to Be Events. So we do full planning services. So what does full planning mean?
Yes.
We have clients that just get engaged and don't know where to start. So we help them from the very early stages, finding the right hotel, finding the right vendors that fit their vision, making sure we stay in a budget. So I'm a numbers person. Having an engineering degree, I love the numbers, and I want to make sure we're on the same page, because at the end of the day, that's the biggest piece of it, is making sure that we stay within a budget. So we help allocate and guide our clients and all the vendors that they would need, where their go-to. We'll help them with whatever they need for their wedding day. Many of our clients don't live in the city here or in Massachusetts. They
Sure.
live remotely,
Sure.
or parents live remotely. Or they have demanding careers in the medical field, lawyers, engineers, business, or they travel quite a bit.
Sure.
So being local and being able to plan a wedding is very challenging for them. So having a wedding planner and one central point of contact that can communicate all of the information to the client, to the families, is very helpful.
So, for example, like say somebody's having their son or daughter, or the bride and the groom, they come to you, so look, we just got engaged, we have no clue,
Yes,
and I want you to take care of everything from A to Z.
yes,
Finding a venue, the restaurant, the decorator, the priest,
everything.
Reception, planning, schedule, visiting cards and invitation cards and all those things. You take care of all those
We
things.
help them with
manage.
all of that, yes.
And they can come and tell you that, look, my budget is 100,000, or my budget is 150,000, or 500,000.
And we work
then you will work
within that.
in that budget. You find the right venue.
Exactly.
And all this stuff.
Yes, that's exactly what we'll do.
Okay. And roughly, do you have any data, for example, how many marriages, Indian-related marriages take place in this Boston area, or no?
In a year,
In
I
a
would
year?
say, I know that Boston Sound and Light does over 150.
Right, yeah, sure.
And along with that, Alankar,
Sure.
they do many weddings
Sure,
together, but they
sure.
also do weddings separately.
Separate, sure.
Maybe over 300 weddings?
Yeah, okay.
Maybe
I
400?
was thinking maybe more than that.
More.
Because it's
Yeah, perhaps a little
now the
conservative.
market, the population
Yeah.
demographics is really.
And now
really-
weddings are starting as early as March
Right,
and
yes.
going as late as November, December.
Yeah,
it's not
sure.
just the summertime focus.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's
Exactly,
yeah.
yes. Now, one other issue I wanted to touch with you, because the whole, the society and living style, everything has values have completely changed. So I also wanted to talk to you about the second marriages. That like somebody's divorced and then they found somebody, and are you coming across those type of weddings or not really?
Unfortunately, we had a couple of clients who have had a divorce. For second marriage, only less than a handful,
Less than a handful,
which is good.
Yeah, okay, okay.
I don't want to see many of those,
Sure,
but
sure.
We have seen it. Yes,
that happens.
that
right?
has happened. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Now, 5 things one should not do when planning a wedding.
5 things one should not do.
So not even go
Yes.
closely to that. Yes, sure.
I would say the bride and groom should not have any tasks on the wedding day. They should not be the go-to person. They're the ones getting married, along with the immediate family, parents and siblings. They should enjoy the wedding, be able to take in all the festivities, and that's why assigning these tasks to a wedding
I
planner.
think that's a very good point you make. Absolutely, yes. That's how it should be.
Let's put ourselves during a vidai. It's a very emotional and sensitive part of the event, especially for the bride's parents. And they should be focusing on the vidai, not worrying about, is lunch ready?
Sure.
Did the grandparents eat? They shouldn't worry about that.
Sure.
They should give these tasks to somebody else.
What else?
Second thing I would say is budgeting. Have a realistic budget, because the budget can climb.
Yes, yeah, that's very important. Sure.
You know, just in the moment of while you're selecting decorations or, flowers, that can easily impact your budget very quickly. So have a realistic budget where both bride, groom, parents are all on the same page. Another aspect I would say is make sure that everyone's expectations are being met. So when it comes to the ceremony, that's very important to the families. Maybe not to the bride and groom if they're not so religious.
Sure.
But this is the piece that is probably most important to the families as opposed to the dinner, dancing, and the party later on. So if we can make sure that all family meets their expectations and what's important to them during the religious aspect of it, I feel that would be a good stepping stone for the full planning ahead of them. You don't want couples saying up front to the family that they want to do a 30-minute ceremony. When, let's say, the bride's family finds it very important to do the full ceremony and take a full hour and make sure that everything is being done in the right way. So having those religious expectations and what traditions and heritages that you want to continue with is very important. Because I feel like that can leave a bad impression
Sure.
on one or the other's family, which can be a more long-term effect and challenge.
Yeah, no, I think these points are very, very valuable. Now, so about 150, 200 weddings a year. Any funny story you can recall, which is totally crazy, which I'm sure
Embarrassing, yes, but I'll share it. I'll share it.
Yeah.
We did a wedding in Punta Cana in Dominican Republic, and their ceremony was on a canal, and we had clear staging put on the canal. So canal has the water,
Sure.
and then it had clear staging
Sure.
on it where the mandap was put on.
Sure.
So after the ceremony is done, we're doing photos in front of the mandap with immediate family members and friends. And as I'm walking on this clear stage,
I know where you are going.
I was not looking where I was walking. I was looking at the person, and I fell into the canal.
Okay. Oh, I was thinking that maybe the bride or
No,
bridegroom fell
of
in
all
the-
people.
Right. Yes. Okay. Okay.
So that was embarrassing, but we made the most of the situation.
Excellent.
Yes.
Now, how do you look at the say next 5 or 6 years when it comes to the Indian and South Asian wedding market?
I say that planning is starting much sooner. We're already into 2020 planning as we're
2020
speaking.
planning.
Yes, almost a dozen weddings for next year are already finalized, which is quite early. We're
Sure.
only in early April right now.
Sure.
I would say fusion trend will continue, and keeping our culture and heritage is very important, and that's where myself and my team find it very important to instill those. We don't want to lose that as we continue 5-10 years from now.
Sure.
I see it in my own family. I have a son who's 6 years old who used to speak fluent Gujarati, but going to school and having friends and the influence around him, he won't even speak Gujarati anymore. He can understand it, but getting him to speak it, impossible. So keeping with the culture, I think, is going to be very challenging in the next several years. But if there are people who know how to instill that in different ways to do it, where it's not so overpowering, but in a subtle way, keep them for all the events, I think that would be a way that we
Now, talking about these issues, one thing just popped up in my head is what about this gays, lesbian type of weddings in the Indian or South Asian community? Have you dealt with
Yes,
that?
we've actually done almost five
Five.
same-sex weddings. So we did, specifically, we have an upcoming 2 women getting married in May. One Indian, one non-Indian.
Here in Boston?
Here
maybe?
in Boston, yes.
Oh, excellent. So that is also
So it's
there.
happening. That's
happening,
probably a future trend also, which may become more common, is the same-sex marriages.
I think, thank you very much. I think it was really great talking to you, and I think you gave a very good perspective about what is happening with
Thank you.
the,
Thank you for
the
having
Indian
me.
market, and it's a really pleasure talking to you. I have seen you in action at some weddings, so
Yeah.
it's nice to see you, and
Thank
again,
you.
thanks for your
Thank
time.
you so much.
Sure.